show you how I use this background and how I bring my subject over to this background. This is from the Autumn Flower Collection. This one, it has these overlays over here. Group 1, it's the flower basket on the left. You can turn it off or on, and the flower basket on the right that you can turn off or on. You can also move those around by hitting Command T or Control T. And you can move those around if you want to. Or like I said, you can actually take them out altogether. I'm going to collapse that and I'll leave them on there for now. The second one that says trees, this is where you can place your subject to maybe where they're partially standing behind the trees over here. This is really cute if you have a group of kids running around and you want maybe some of them running from behind the tree and then some running down here playing. You can do that without having to mask them, mask the tree off of them or anything. Okay, so let's start on our background layer. Oh goodness, excuse me. And I'm going to use this picture here. Let me go ahead and flatten that. Okay, so what I like to do is just take my rectangular marquee tool, come over and select my subject. Now, normally I would come over and I'd go ahead and get rid of this. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to Command D to deselect. Let me see if I can do that with my spot healing tool. I do like to try and go ahead and take care of any of those little things that that you want to fix, any distractions before you bring your subject over. I like to go ahead and do a quick edit on them. Oh, my pen tool is doing something funny. So let me just turn that off. It does that every now and then. So I'm just going to use the mouse pad. It's not as precise, but I guess I don't really have to worry about the tree because it's not going to be in our image. Let's see what it does here. See how it kind of messed his pants up just a little bit. So let's try to bring that back over. Sometimes you can. Other times you want to go up here to your history and let's back off of that. So if you move up here, you can see that over here, it's undoing what you did. There we go. And we can try again. So maybe try over here first. And I mean, realistically, you're probably not going to see this once he's over in the other image. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that for right now. Let me make this smaller. Okay, and you can hit Control or Command and the minus key at the top to make your image smaller or to zoom out, and then Command plus to zoom in. Now let's go back to that rectangular marquee tool over here. And we're going to select our subject and then some, just a little bit. Now I'm going to do Command for control. C for copy. I'm going to come back over here to that background, and I'm on the background layer, and I'm going to do Command V to paste. Now you can see here that he's really large for this image right now, but that's nothing to worry about. Okay, we want to cut our image out, or not our image, our subject out of this. Okay, now there is a shortcut that you can do that is one of the actions that I got from Sweet Soul Studio. It's actually part of a couple of her collections. But I tell you what, let me just show you how to do it without an action. Okay, so let's see. And I want to use our quick selection tool over here. And then I'm going to do select subject. And you want to make sure that you are on that layer where you brought your subject over from the other image. Now you can see it does a pretty good job, but it does not always do it perfect. Like part of his shoe is missing down here. So you can bring that back in. What I like to do, because it's not always perfect, but you're kind of teaching Photoshop where it should be selecting. So I'm going to hold down my option. I think it would be Alt on a Windows computer. And that changes my selection from adding to it to subtracting. So if you look at the button here, when I hold the option down, it turns it to a minus. Let go, it's plus. But I'm going to take this away from my selection. It's running a little slow. My computer is right now. This is my laptop, so it's going to run a little slow. And that's just because I have a lot of files on here that I need to move. Now I'm going to go up here to select and mask. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can see more of him. And you can see, go over here for the properties, and you can make that any color you want. I chose blue because I felt like that worked better for me. A lot of some people like to use red. I like to use blue, but that helps me see what's part of my selection and what isn't. So I'm going to use this brush tool over here to add and take away from my selection. I don't actually think I need to add. I need to take away, but let me zoom in some. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to just hit the minus button over there. You can make your brush tool smaller by hitting the left bracket key on your keyboard, or larger by hitting the right bracket. Okay, so let's take some of that off. So doing the select and mask helps you, I guess, be a little more precise with your selection. go. And just depending on how close your subject is going to be, um, you would be a little more picky if it's going to be up close. But when they're kind of far away, like he's going to be in this background, you don't have to be quite as precise, but that's all up to you. Just kind of look and see how it's going to affect your image. Smaller. And just take out some of that. It's probably not going to be noticeable really, but that way some of the background may peek in. Here, let me make sure. Oop, I want to add his hair, not take away. So I want to make sure that that's in there. There's also this nifty refine hair button up here. And when you use that, it kind of helps you find the edges of the hair. So I'm going to hold the Option key and take some of this away. Let's make sure that he has all of his hair in the selection over here. Sometimes that refined hair works well for me, and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, because it took away his hair here. And the good thing about it is whenever you move it over, you're going to have the layer mask. So if you notice there's something that you need to bring back in that it did not select, you can always add it back. Okay, I think that looks good. Now I'm going to go down here. So on the right side of that window, you're going to scroll down to the bottom for output settings. And it has output to. I'm going to make it output to a new layer. Nope, layer mask, because we are already on the layer where we moved our subject over. So I'm going to make that output to a layer mask and hit OK. So you see right here, it made a layer mask. And we can look and see that there's little bitty markings on there where it didn't quite get all of his genes. That's no big deal because we have our layer mask and we can use our brush tool. So for the brush tool, you can just hit the letter B on your keyboard and it'll select it, or you can choose it over here. And I'm going to use the background or the black brush over there to kind of clean this up a little bit. Got on 80%. Let me put that on 100. And the smaller that brush is, because I still want to use my soft round brush, the smaller it is, the more, the sharper it's going to be without, just using a hard brush. I'm going to use my white brush. You can toggle that off and on between black and white with the letter X on your keyboard. I just need to see the edge of that shoe. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my black brush. And back to my white, because you can see where it kind of cut off part of his jeans. Oh, it had fun with his sweater over here. And if you're going in a straight line, you can tap at one end of that line, move your mouse over to the opposite end, and hold down the shift key and then press select that. And it will make a straight line for you, so you don't have to worry about um, having a jagged line. Okay. Going to switch back to my white brush and see if there's part of his sweater missing or if that's part of the tree. It is part of the tree. So black brush again and clean that up. And honestly, if you want to figure out where you're going to place your subject first, because if he's going to be against a tree like he was before, all of that's not really going to matter. So you can just leave that and save yourself some work. All right, I'm going to zoom out, Command minus, and I just want to show you something really quick about placement. So Command T for transform. If you see right now, because he is above the background layer and below the trees and the group that's the hanging plants, let's go a little smaller, dude. He needs Celine. Okay, but because of where he is placed in the order over here for the layers, he is behind those things. So do you see how he can be back here? Obviously, he's way too big. He's like a jolly green giant. Okay, but he's behind there. So if we want to bring him, if we want to lean him up against that tree, he has to be above the tree layer. Okay, now let's move him. Control T again. And he's in front of that tree layer. I have to change his size because he's ginormous. I just try to kind of gauge, like look at the steps and see, gosh, what size would he be for those steps? I'd say maybe around about right there. And we could lean him right up against that tree, or maybe lean him right here. The only thing is he kind of disappears right there. So you want to look at the background that you're using, look at what color your subject is wearing, and just see if they're going to disappear in the background if you move them over there, or if they're going to pop. Probably if he was wearing like a brighter color sweater, he would stand out a little bit more. Um, But since he's wearing the green, he's going to disappear if I lean him against that. Let's move him there. And then hit the check for okay. That means you're done transforming him. However, I would probably, let me turn off those baskets. Okay. We can either move him above the basket or we can move the basket. So Command T, if we move that basket, say up here, it'd be kind of out of the way. But it almost seems a little distracting to me. So you have a couple of options. Let's move that basket over here with its buddy. And you can have both baskets hanging over there on that side if you want, or you can just get rid of one or both of them altogether and not worry about it. I think I want to leave one of them, but maybe right there. And that's only if I leave him here, if I have him leaning up against that side of the tree. I'm probably going to lean him just because of his position, like of the shape of his body. Now, I could make him stand up straighter too. Let me see. Here is my subject. I'm going to rename that Eli. Let me zoom in a little bit. So now, because it is still only him that is on this layer, he's the only thing on this layer. I'm going to go to Edit, Puppet Warp, zoom in a little bit further, and I want to, let's see, I'll keep the top part of his body still. Okay. These are my anchoring pins so that those parts don't move. So maybe even keep that. Now I'm going to put a pin down here at his feet and just shift him a little to make him stand. And let me delete that pin. And this one right here. Pin on the top of his head. And stand him up a little bit straighter. And then hit OK. You have to be careful with that because if you do it too fast or make too drastic of a change, it can distort their face, their body. So you do want to be careful with that. But I think that's better. If you go up here to your history tool, there he was before. And this is him after I straightened him up a little bit. Okay. And I like to hit this camera capture snapshot. That's what it's called over here. And that saves it right up here. So if you want to remind yourself where you were, post warp kind of reminds me of where I was. Okay. And then go back there to the bottom again. Now we want to see, do we want to leave him there now that we changed the shape a little bit? So Command T for transform. So we can put him right here in the middle. feel like he needs to be tilted just a tad. And then I just like to zoom in and out and see if that looks natural to me. Kind of got his arms crossed, so he still looks like he should be leaning against something. Now I'm moving him further away because he's on the step, on the top of the step. And the further away something is, the smaller it looks, right? So if I wanted him in the middle, I could put him right there. I still think he needs to kind of be to the side. And you can even bring them much closer to you and make them bigger. Now, I will say if you're going to bring them up really close and like you're moving him to where only half of his body is showing, make sure that you don't cut your subject off at where there's a joint. So like at the ankles or at the knees or, you know, at the elbows or at the wrist. You don't want to do that because then it looks kind of funny and then you can't really tell where that ends, if that makes sense. So I'll usually go like right below the knees, right above the knees, something like that. But you kind of got to have to look at your subject. Ooh, he looks a little, and you have to consider the image that you used. Like this image would not be great for that up close because of where he was over here. He was a little further back. So, I mean, he's pretty sharp over there. But as you can see in this image, because it is much bigger, if you bring him that close and try to enlarge your subject, then it's going to be a little pixelated. Okay, I'm trying not to make this go on forever for you, but sometimes I get a little bit long-winded. I think I like that. Okay, now, before I do any other adjustments to him, I'm going to make a copy of him. So while I'm on this layer right here, that thumbnail, not your layer mask, but the thumbnail for the layer, I'm going to do Command J, and this is going to be our shadow layer. So the shadow is usually behind or beneath what you're working with. So I'm going to drag it below the original layer. And I'm going to rename this Eli Shadow. And just so you can see what you're working with, if you hit Command T, I'm just moving him out to the side. Now that's not where his shadow is going to be, but I'm just moving him so I can see what I'm working with. And then I'm going to go up here to Image, Adjustments, and Exposure, and bring that down a good bit, or all the way, to just make it really, really dark. Okay, and then Command T again. Now I'm going to line it up. We are still on the shadow layer, and I have this up here checked what this does is it maintains the aspect ratio just like it says. So if I shorten it if I make it narrower, it's going to change the height to match that. But what I'm going to do is come up here to this, and I'm going to hold down the command button. When you do, you see the arrows change from vertical to horizontal. What that is telling you is that you've got this opposite side locked down. Hitting command, and then see I'm moving the top part of this and the bottom is staying still or anchored. So now I can take care of his shadow. So look at the tree over here and you see how the shadow is falling this way. So we know that his shadow needs to fall that way as well. So I'm going to pull it this way. Oh, there we go. And let's move it a tad. Hold down the command. Oh, hold on. And you can use your arrow keys to move it just a tad too. Okay. Now I'm going to hold down command and move it that way some. And then bring this side up a little bit. And that down. And you can shorten the shadow or make it longer. I think that's probably good. Right there. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK. It looks crazy dark. That's not what the shadow should look like. So what you're going to do is come over here to your layer thumbnail, right click, and we're going to turn this into, hey, hold on. There we go. Okay. So I guess you need to be over here on this side and right click. I'm going to convert it to a smart object so that any changes that I make, I can still adjust those changes and it's not saved and it's not a permanent change to that layer. Okay, I'm going to go up here to filter, choose blur, Gaussian blur, and just move my slider while keeping an eye on this shadow over here. And like if I match it to the shadow of the tree, I think it's right about there. So I'm going to hit OK. And then you can still go over here and change the opacity of the shadow if you want to make it a little bit lighter. So here it is without the shadow and with the shadow. And you have to have those shadows to make it look more realistic. Okay, so let's go back to Eli. Click on that layer and then come up here to adjustments and single adjustment. Do a curves layer. And I want to make sure that it only affects him because right now, if I move this down or up, it's affecting the entire image. Let me hit reset. So in order to make it only affect my subject in his layer, I'm going to make a clipping mat or clip it to his layer. So you can do that there, or you can right click on that layer and do create clipping mask. Either way, it does the same thing. I'm going to pull it down a little in the middle. And you see that's just adding more to the shadows. If I come over here, you can see how that affects the midtones. And then toggle it off and on. Let's zoom in a little. And then what you could do is make it a little bit darker than you think you need. And then you have this layer mask over here. Use your brush and a black brush. And then I'm going to bring it down to about 40. So I'm just going to hit the number 4 on my keyboard and then adjust that to 4. Make my brush a little bit bigger. And just brush some of that off of maybe this side. There we go. Okay. As far as the colors go, I think he already kind of blends pretty well with those colors, but if you needed to adjust it, just go to your top layer, come over here to selective color, and start in your neutrals. Again, we want to make a clipping mask so it is clipped to this layer. And you can just play around with these sliders a little bit. So if he's looking a little blue or green and you want to give him, well, wrong way, that adds more cyan. Pull it back in the other direction to give him a little more of that pinkish color. But a little goes a long way. So you really don't want to jump the gun and go too far. You can always come back and adjust it a little bit. Let's see, magenta. Nope, he really doesn't need any more magenta. So you need a bump of yellow. Ooh. Maybe a tad. The black, you can make them darker or lighter. And then just toggle that off and on. It's a very slight change that I made because I feel like he was pretty close to the right shade to begin with. Okay. Something else you could, oh, we do want to brighten his eyes a little bit. So I'm going to do another curves layer and I'm going to clip it. And we're going to bump that up a little bit. Now you could do it there. Let me reset it. Or if you go under here, under preset, you could go to lighter. It'll automatically bump everything up lighter for you. There are some presets here that you can play around with. Darker, or stay with custom. Let's reset it and just drag that up a little bit lighter. And the reason I'm choosing lighter right now is because his eyes and his face are a little dark. So I'm going to change this mask to black by hitting Command or Control I. My brush, I'm going to go to 60%. Brush needs to be a little smaller. And zoom in. And I don't want to just do this, because if you just do that, he's going to look like he has raccoon eyes. So let's go a little bit bigger for his eyebrows. Oh, got to change that brush to white. I'm going to hit X and change it to white. And just give that a couple of taps. Okay. Maybe right here too. And off and on. It's a subtle change. Okay. Let's look at levels. I like the levels because if you see what it does to his shadows, it adds a little bit of depth to him instead of where he was looking kind of flat. See how he looks flat? And then when I turn that back on, it gives him a little more depth. And let's see. Let me try the middle one. Nope. Leave that one right there. But just so you can see what each one does. That, it increases the highlights a little, see? I just did it drastic so you can see what it does. But let's bump that just a tad. It's one of those things you just have to play around with. It's not going to be the same for every image. Yeah. I like the color that gives. And if you feel like you went a little too far, all you have to do is come over here and adjust the opacity. Okay. There it is without the levels adjustment, and there it is with it. It looks so much better. That made a huge difference. And that look to me looks pretty good for just bringing him in to that background. Now you can go and play around with some other things. Like I said, I do use a lot of, I'm going to go ahead and do a snapshot. A lot of, I love the actions from Sweet Soul Studio. She has an outdoor, let me find the top of this, outdoor painterly collection. Now, if you don't have your actions set up like this as buttons, I will say I love it. Okay, so when you don't have it in button mode, it looks kind of like this, except all of my actions you can see are, the drop downs are expanded. Normally they're all collapsed when you're just in this regular mode. I don't like doing that because you end up having to you have to click on it more. Like you click on one thing, then you have to come down here and hit play. Button mode is so much better, and I learned this from Kirsty at Sweet Soul Studio. I love the button mode because you just touch the action you want to use and it automatically plays and you don't have to do anything else. Okay. So on here, if you wanted to add some light, she has some really great things in this outdoor painterly collection. Let's see. add soft light and let's see what it does here. It does take it a minute. And now these actions, I've noticed a lot of them will create a new background layer, or it'll a stamp of everything that's on the screen at that moment. So with that on, if you turn off any of these layers below it, it's not going to make a difference at all because it made a stamp of everything that was done before, and that's what you're adjusting. So if you wanted to change anything down here and you're like, oh crud, I should have done this, you have to turn that layer off and actually remove it and then do whatever adjustments you need to do down here. Or you just have to do those adjustments again above this layer. Hope that's not too complicated. So that one, like I said, is add soft light, and you can adjust it, change the opacity. If you just wanted a little bit of light there, there's without, there's with. I am, I like the subtle changes on a lot of these. But yeah, she has a boost, or soft shadows, boost the exposure a little bit. If you have an image that's too bright, you can bring it down. But for these backgrounds, I tried to go ahead and set it up so you don't have to do too many adjustments to the background itself. All you're really editing is your subject. So you don't really have to use too much afterwards unless you just want it. But what I find myself using the most for these is maybe if I wanted to, let me find it on here. Movable light. So maybe you want to add um, a movable light source. You can see the lights coming over here. Also, you can see there's a little bit of glow behind the tree. I'm going to get rid of this, add a soft light real quick. Let me delete that. And then I think it was on here. Like I said, this is the Outdoor Painterly. So I'm looking for something real quick. I probably should have stopped this video um, before I went to the final edit and just split it apart. Paint on glow. No, 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 that's not what I want. Subject back glow. So it was at the very top under subject adjustments. So she has this amazing action called subject back glow. I'm going to let it run. And you can see it's creating a stamp of the background. It does take it a minute to, so be patient. Okay. Now let's see what it has done. Off. So it put some glowing stuff on his face, which we don't want. And you can see it put a little bit of glow on the front part of the tree. So just, you have to toggle it off and on and see where it puts stuff. So it's not a perfect science. Let me open the menu up here. And I'm going to click on this. And if you hit your backslash key on your keyboard, it'll show you where the masking is. Okay. So see, it put it on here. So it's easy. It's an easy fix. You go on that layer mask over here. Okay. And use your brush tool. And we want to take it off of here. So it's already on black. I'm going to adjust that to 100 actually. Okay. And I want to take that off of this. Okay. And off of that. Okay. And off of his face. It should work. I don't know. Hold on. It may not because of. Let me see. Nope, that didn't work. Because of the stamp here. Because of that. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out this layer here. Okay, so you have to turn off this layer. I might just have to get rid of. I see what it's doing. Sorry. Normally this does work pretty well, but it looks like it just had a hard time finding my subject, so I'm going to delete that. But like I said, normally it's a really great action if you don't have too much stuff going on. I think this scene is a little too busy for it to pick up on him. Okay, so we won't use that. But the other thing that I was saying that you could use is go back to the movable lights, and you could, it has a yellow light going on. You can play the yellow light, and it is movable when this screen is open. So see, you can move it up here to the top. You can just keep it right here if you want. But you want it, like, you can tell that the light source is over here. So if you move it over here, it's going to be kind of weird. It won't go with the scene. I'm not going to use it for this. You can, like, make it smaller, make it larger if you wanted to. Another cool thing about those lights, okay, we're not going to have it this big, but I'm just going to show you something really quick. But with that light and with our Eli layer, let's see, is if I took him, okay, so there's where he is, and all these adjustments go with him, okay? So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on that top layer, and then I'm going to do Command G and change that to say Eli. It groups all of that together for me, so it makes it a lot easier to move. So if I move that above that yellow light, then you don't have to worry about masking that light off of him. It's just like with that hanging basket, because it's above that layer, it was already masked off. But if I pull it down, then the light falls on the basket. But I'll put it back up there. So if you did want to use a light, but you didn't want it to fall on your subject for these composites, you can move all of that goes to your subject above the yellow light or whatever color light you choose, and you won't have to worry about masking it off. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. And like I said, I like that. If you want to add a little bit more, oh, did I erase the hold on? Oh, I added it in there. See, I accidentally moved the floral basket into Eli's. There we go. I knew that looked funny. Okay, so if go back in here, you can still give him a little bit more of a glow on that one side if you want to. You can go on the curves, create a new curves layer, clip it to him again. Now I went inside the group folder and above the top layer and bump that up. Change your layer mask to black by hitting Command or Control I. And then take your brush, and I would probably do like a 40%. Okay. And then you could brush a little bit on him if you wanted. Look on the side, see how it just added a little bit more light to that side. Turn that off and on, and you can see how it just is. It's very subtle, but it's those little details. If you pay attention to them and go back in and make those adjustments, that really add that realism to your image. So I'm going to stop this edit here, and then I may do another video. Oh, well, one more thing. Like you could go back in and do some dodge and burn. I'm leaving that little strand of grass because you see there's some other stuff in the foreground here. So it doesn't really bother me that much. One of the other things that I really like to use from Kirsty's is from her Fine Art Portrait and Painterly collection. I like the Fine Art Base Action. The coloring that she uses on there is so pretty. You'll see. Continue. And then I almost always drop that down a good bit to 40 or 50%, just depending on my image. So at 40%, you can see it just gives it more of a an antique looking finish to me. I might even drop that down to like 35. And then I also really love, if you scroll down a little bit more, and this is in her Fine Art Portrait and Painterly collection. Like I said, you don't have to have it. I feel like the image looked great before adding this, but I really love these finishes. This is the magical finish without a texture added. Okay, I did not add any texture layers, so I'm going to use that one. Okay. And so this, it kind of, it brightened it up a little bit. It lifted the highlights, I feel, and it adjusted the color a little bit. It may have made it a little too brown for me, but like I said, you can always adjust it like that. Take it off. The image really looks great without either one of them, you know? Um, yeah. or if you just wanted to do fine art base, which I think I might do that one and get rid of this one. But it all comes down to what you like, what looks good to you. So I'm going to end this one there, and let me know if you have any questions.